Alien security forces study human criminal psychology because our minds create terror. Part 1. Commander had served the Galactic Concord for 412 years. She had analyzed the criminal minds of 37 different species. She had predicted terrorist attacks before they happened. She had stopped wars by understanding how dangerous individuals thought. In all her centuries of work, she had never failed to understand a criminal's motivation. Until the humans came. The message arrived on her personal terminal at the third hour of the station's night cycle. Priority 1. Immediate response required. She read it twice because she did not believe what it said. A human cargo handler had taken 17 hostages aboard station. Every predictive model had failed. Every analysis had come back empty. The directorate needed answers, and they needed them now. Traveled to station within 6 hours. The crisis was already over by the time she arrived. Security forces had managed to resolve the situation without casualties. The hostages were safe. The human was in detention, but nobody understood why it had happened. She reviewed the files on her journey. The human's name was, he was 34 years old by human counting. He had worked as a cargo handler for 2 years. His performance reviews were satisfactory. He had no criminal record. He had no known political beliefs. He had no debts. He had no enemies. He had no history of mental illness. There was nothing in his file that explained what he had done. People had evolved on a world of perfect logic. Their brains processed information in clean, orderly patterns. They could not lie without physical discomfort. They could not act against their own interests without conscious effort. For understanding why someone did something was simple. You looked at what they wanted. You looked at what they believed. You drew a straight line between cause and effect. Humans, she was beginning to realize, did not work this way. The detention center on station was cold and gray. Sat in a small room with transparent walls. He looked ordinary. Brown hair, medium build, tired eyes. He could have been any of the thousands of humans who pass through conquered space every day. Entered the room and sat across from him. She studied his face for any sign of what drove him. She found nothing. "Do you know why I am here?" she asked. Looked at her with mild curiosity. "To figure me out, I guess." "That is correct. I need to understand why you did what you did." He laughed. It was not a cruel laugh. It was not a mad laugh. It was the laugh of someone who found genuine humor in the situation. Good luck with that. Had interrogated thousands of criminals. She knew how to read body language, vocal patterns, and micro-expressions. She knew how to spot lies and half-truths. Was not lying. He genuinely did not seem to know why he had done it. "Walk me through the day," she said, "from the beginning." Shrugged. "I woke up, I ate breakfast. I went to work. I loaded cargo containers for about 3 hours. Then I decided to take some hostages." "You decided?" "Yeah. Just like that. Just like that." Felt something she had not felt in a very long time. Confusion. Real, genuine confusion. There must have been a trigger, something that changed, something that made you act. Thought about it for a moment. "No, not really. I was loading a container of medical supplies. I remember thinking about what I was going to have for dinner. And then I thought, what if I just did something crazy? What if I just took these people hostage and saw what happened?" "And you acted on that thought?" "Yeah." "Why?" Smiled. It was a strange, almost gentle smile. "I wanted to see what would happen." Stared at him. In 4 centuries of work, she had never heard those words from a criminal. Criminals acted for reasons. They wanted money. They wanted power. They wanted revenge. They wanted to prove something. They had ideologies or traumas or disorders that explained their actions. They did not simply want to see what would happen. She left the interrogation room and walked to the observation deck. Through the large windows, she could see the stars stretching out into infinity. Somewhere out there, Billions of humans lived on there and their colonies. Billions of minds that she was beginning to realize she did not understand at all. Her assistant, a young named, approached her with a data tablet. "Commander, we have received your new assignment." Took the tablet and read it. The words made her stomach drop. By order of the High Council of the Galactic Concord, a new division was being created, the Human Psychology Analysis Unit. Its mission was to study the human mind well enough to predict human criminal behavior, was to command it. "This is impossible," she said. Looked at her with surprise. "Commander, look at this man." She gestured toward the detention center. "He had no reason to do what he did, no reason at all. How do we predict that? How do we create a model for something that has no cause?" Did not answer. He had no answer to give. Over the next several weeks, began recruiting specialists for her new unit. She gathered psychologists and sociologists from a dozen different species. She requested access to every piece of human data the Concord had collected. She read their history books. She watched their entertainment. She studied their art. What she found disturbed her deeply. Human history was a parade of violence that seemed to serve no logical purpose. They had fought wars over ideas, not resources, not territory. Ideas. They had killed each other over which invisible gods they believed in. They had tortured each other over political theories. They had committed genocide against their own subspecies for reasons that seemed to change every few generations. And yet they had also created beauty. They made music that could move other species to tears. They painted pictures of light and color that captured something true about existence. They wrote stories about love and hope and sacrifice that resonated across cultural boundaries. The same species that had burned witches and built death camps had also composed symphonies and walked on their moon and written poetry about the tenderness of holding a child. Could not reconcile these things. They did not fit together. They were not supposed to be possible in the same beings. She returned to for a final interview before he was transferred to a long-term detention facility. He looked the same as before, ordinary, calm, unremarkable. "I have one more question," she said. "Sure. Do you regret what you did?" Was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, almost sad. "Yeah, I do. Those people were scared, really scared. I can still see their faces. I feel terrible about it." "Then why did you do it?" "I told you. I wanted to see what would happen." "But you knew it would hurt them." "Yeah, I knew." "And you did it anyway." "Yeah." Leaned forward. "How is that possible? How can you feel bad about something you chose to do, knowing it was wrong, knowing it would hurt people?" Met her eyes. For the first time, she saw something deep in his gaze, something old and dark and very, very human. "That's the question, isn't it?" he said. "That's the whole question." Before she left, called out to her. She stopped at the door and turned back. "You want to know the scary part?" he said. She waited. "I'm one of the boring ones." Walked back to her ship in silence. She had spent 4 centuries believing that she understood how minds worked. She had believed that consciousness followed rules, that behavior could be mapped and predicted, that even the darkest acts had logical causes that could be identified and prevented. Humanity had just proven her wrong. She sat in her ship and stared at the wall for a long time. Somewhere in the galaxy, billions of humans were waking up and going about their days. Most of them would never hurt anyone. Most of them would live quiet, ordinary lives. But inside each of them was the same chaos she had seen in his eyes. The same capacity to simply decide, for no reason at all, to do something terrible. And there was no way to tell which ones would choose to act on it. Her new unit had a lot of work to do. She was beginning to suspect that it would never be enough. Part 2. 6 months had passed since Commander took command of the Human Psychology Analysis Unit. In that time, her team had interviewed over 300 humans, criminals, Scholars, artists, soldiers, ordinary workers, children, elders. They had gathered more data on human psychology than any previous conquered project. None of it made sense. Stood in her office aboard the research station, looking at the holographic displays floating around her. Each one showed a different aspect of human cognition: brain scans, behavioral patterns, statistical models, interview transcripts. All of it pointed to the same impossible conclusion. Human minds had no central organizing principle. Every other species in the conquered operated according to identifiable drives: the pursued logical optimization, the sought social harmony, the followed hierarchical dominance. Even the most complex species could be understood once you identified their core motivations. Humans had no core, or rather they had too many cores. Their minds contained multiple, contradictory drives that operated simultaneously. They could want something and not want it at the same time. They could believe something was wrong and do it anyway. They could love someone and hurt them in the same breath. It was as if evolution had built a mind with no governor, no safety limits, no natural boundaries. Lead researcher, a neurologist named, entered her office. He was large, covered in dark scales, and normally projected an air of calm confidence. Today, he looked shaken. "Commander," he said, "we have completed the analysis of the serial killer interviews." Turned to face him and hesitated. In culture, hesitation was a sign of deep distress. "I need to show you the recordings. I do not have words to explain what we found." They walked together to the interview archive. The room was dark except for the glow of the playback screen. Started the recording. The human on the screen was named David. He had killed 14 people over a span of 3 years. His victims had no connection to each other. He had no personal grudge against any of them. He had simply chosen them and ended their lives. What disturbed was not his crimes. She had studied murderers before. What disturbed her was how he spoke about them. Was calm, articulate, intelligent. He explained his methods with the same tone someone might use to describe a hobby. He understood exactly what he had done. He could analyze his own behavior with clinical precision. He knew it was wrong by every standard of human morality. He had done it anyway. "I knew it was wrong," said on the recording. "I knew what I was taking from them, their futures, their families, their everything. I understood all of that. I just did not care enough to stop." The interviewer, a conquered psychologist, asked the obvious question: "Why not?" Smiled. It was a normal smile, friendly almost, because caring was not strong enough. The wanting was stronger. "What were you wanting?" "To see what it felt like, to have that power, to experience something most people never experience." He paused. "To be free from the rules just for a moment." Stopped the recording. She felt cold. Not physically cold, but something deeper, a chill in her understanding of the universe. "He knew," she said quietly. "He understood everything, and it did not stop him." Nodded. "This is what we have found in all the serious offenders. They are not broken in the way we expected. They are not missing pieces. They simply have the ability to override their own values when they choose to. All humans have this ability. We believe so. The difference is in how often they use it and how far they are willing to go." Thought about the billions of humans in the galaxy, each one carrying this capacity inside them, each one making choices every day about how much of their darkness to express. The next interview was with a human psychologist named Dr. Sarah Martinez. She had been brought in to help the conquered understand human cognition from the inside. What she said changed everything thought she knew. "You want to understand intrusive thoughts," Dr. Martinez said. "This is important. Every human has them." Explain. Intrusive thoughts are unwanted thoughts that appear in the mind without warning. Violent thoughts, disturbing thoughts, thoughts about hurting yourself or others, thoughts about doing terrible things. Every healthy human brain produces these. Stared at her, every human. Every single one. A mother holding her baby might suddenly think about dropping it. A person standing on a cliff might think about jumping. Someone holding a knife might think about stabbing the person next to them. These thoughts just appear. And what do humans do with these thoughts? Dr. Martinez shrugged. Usually, nothing. We recognize them as intrusive, we let them pass. We do not act on them, but they are always there. The darkness is always whispering. Always. Always. The human experience is a constant negotiation between impulses. We are not born good or evil. We are born with the capacity for both. Every moment of every day we choose. And the scary part is that the choice is real. We could actually do those terrible things. We have the capability. We just choose not to. Felt the chill spreading through her. This was worse than she had imagined. Humans were not occasionally dangerous. They were constantly dangerous. Every single one of them was a battlefield between light and darkness, and the outcome was never guaranteed. She requested additional interviews with human philosophers. She needed to understand how humans themselves thought about their nature. An elderly professor named Thomas explained the concept that haunted for weeks afterward. Wrote about the banality of evil, he said. She studied the Nazis who ran the death camps. She expected to find monsters. She found ordinary men, bureaucrats, fathers, neighbors. They were not special. They were not different. They were just people who made choices, step by step, that led them to do monstrous things. You are saying anyone can become a monster. I am saying that monsters are not a separate category. There is no bright line between the good people and the bad people. There is only choice, circumstance, pressure, and the terrifying human capacity to justify anything to ourselves. How do you live with this knowledge? Professor smiled sadly. We learn not to think about it too much. We build societies and laws and cultures that make good choices easier and bad choices harder. We try to create conditions where the best parts of human nature can flourish. But we never forget that the darkness is there. We never pretend we have defeated it. After 3 more months of research, his team reached a breaking point. A young analyst named La requested a transfer. She came to his office with tears in her eyes. I cannot do this anymore, La said. I cannot spend my days looking into human minds. I see them in my sleep now. The chaos, the contradictions, the capacity for cruelty existing alongside genuine love. It is breaking me. I understand, said. I will approve your transfer. How do you continue, Commander? How do you keep studying them? Did not have a good answer. The truth was that she had nightmares too. She had started waking in the middle of the night cycle, her mind filled with visions of human history. The wars, the purges, the tortures, all committed by beings who could have chosen otherwise. But alongside those nightmares were other images. A human rushing into a burning building to save a stranger. A human giving their life to protect someone they had never met. A human forgiving the person who had murdered their family. The same chaos that produced monsters also produced heroes. The same unpredictability that made humans terrifying also made them capable of impossible acts of love. Prepared her preliminary report for the High Council. She worked on it for weeks, trying to find the right words. In the end, she could only tell the truth. Human criminal psychology cannot be modeled because it is not separate from human psychology generally. The capacity for calculated cruelty exists in every human mind. The difference between a criminal and an ordinary citizen is not a difference of kind. It is a difference of choice. We cannot predict which humans will choose violence because humans themselves do not know. They are not determined by their biology or their history or their circumstances. They are radically free. Every moment they can become anything. Our models assume rational actors. Humans are not irrational. They are something worse. They are irrational. They contain infinite possibilities. We cannot map what has no fixed shape. She attached a classified addendum with her recommendation: immediate cessation of all predictive policing initiatives targeting humans. It would not be enough. She knew that. The High Council would want answers, and she had none to give. She could only tell them what humanity truly was: unpredictable, dangerous, free. And absolutely terrifying. Part 3. The High Council chamber was vast and ancient. Its walls held the memories of 12,000 years of galactic peace. Representatives from over 200 species sat in tiered rows, their attention focused on the small figure at the center of the room. Commander had never felt so alone. She had submitted her report 3 weeks ago. The reaction had been immediate and severe. Factions had formed overnight. Arguments had erupted in chambers that had not seen conflict in generations. The Conquered was facing its greatest crisis since its founding. All because of humanity. The speaker, an ancient named Maketh Prime, called the chamber to order. His voice echoed through the vast space. Commander, you have studied humanity for nearly 1 standard year. Your findings have caused considerable alarm. Before we vote on the proposed measures, you will address this council directly. Looked around the chamber. She saw fear in many faces, anger in others. A few showed curiosity. None showed the calm certainty that had defined Conquered politics for. Honored representatives, she began. I was asked to understand the human mind well enough to predict human violence. I have failed in this mission, but I have learned something more important. She activated her holographic display. Images appeared in the air above her. Human history, the beautiful and the terrible, side by side. When I began this project, I believed that human criminals were aberrations, broken individuals, anomalies that could be identified and contained. I was wrong. The chamber was silent. Every eye was fixed on her. Human consciousness is fundamentally different from any species we have encountered. Their minds do not operate according to fixed principles. They generate contradictory impulses simultaneously. They can hold opposing beliefs without resolution. They can want something and not want it at the same moment. She showed brain scans, behavioral data, interview transcripts, evidence she had gathered over months of work. Every human contains the capacity for extreme violence. This is not a flaw in some humans. It is a feature of human cognition. The darkness is always present, always whispering. The only thing that prevents action is choice. A representative stood. Then you are saying humans cannot be trusted. They are too dangerous to remain in conquered space. That is one interpretation, said, but it is incomplete. She changed the display. Now it showed different images. A human doctor working without sleep to save plague victims. A human soldier throwing himself on an explosive to protect strangers. A human mother forgiving the murderer of her child. The same chaos that produces human darkness also produces human light. Their capacity for cruelty is matched by their capacity for sacrifice. Their potential for evil is balanced by their potential for good. Then which are they? Another representative demanded. Good or evil? Paused. This was the question, the only question that mattered. Neither, she said, and both, and that is what makes them unique. She turned to address the full chamber. For 12,000 years, the Conquered has maintained peace through prediction. We model behavior. We identify threats. We neutralize dangers before they manifest. Our entire system is built on the assumption that minds can be understood, that behavior follows causes, that violence can be prevented by removing its sources. Humanity has proven this assumption false. We cannot predict them because they are genuinely free. Their choices are not determined by their circumstances or their biology or their history. Every human at every moment has the real power to choose anything. The chamber erupted in argument. Voices rose. Factions shouted at each other. Maketh Prime called for order, but it took several minutes before silence returned. A representative spoke. If humans cannot be predicted, then they must be contained. The safety of the conquered requires it. I considered that conclusion, said, but I believe it is wrong. How can you say that? You have just told us that any human could choose violence at any moment. Yes, and any human could also choose peace. Any human could choose heroism. Any human could choose to sacrifice everything for the good of others. That is what freedom means. She pulled up one final set of data, statistics she had compiled over her months of research. In the past year, there have been 47 serious violent incidents involving humans in conquered space. 47 out of over 10 million humans in our territory. That is a rate of 0.00047%. The numbers floated in the air, undeniable. Yes, humans have the capacity for terrible violence, but the overwhelming majority choose not to exercise it. Every day, millions of humans wake up with the power to hurt others, and every day they choose peace instead, not because they must, but because they want to. That is not a guarantee, someone objected. No, agreed. It is not, and that is my point. For 12,000 years we have believed that peace requires guarantees, that safety requires certainty. Humanity shows us that this is an illusion. She turned to face the skeptical faces around her. Peace is not the absence of the capacity for violence. Peace is the choice to refrain from violence when you have the power to commit it. Humanity makes that choice every single day. That is not a weakness. That is a strength we have never truly understood. The chamber was quiet now, could see minds working behind alien eyes. She had given them something to consider that challenged everything they believed. I do not recommend isolation, she said. I do not recommend control. I recommend partnership. Partnership, Maketh Prime leaned forward. Explain. Humanity understands something we have forgotten. They know that evil is always possible. They live with that knowledge every day. They have built entire philosophies around the reality that goodness must be chosen, that virtue is not given but achieved, that peace is a practice, not a state. She thought of all the humans she had interviewed, the criminals and the saints, the ordinary workers and the extraordinary heroes, all of them carrying the same chaos inside. All of them making choices every day about who they wanted to be. We have spent trying to eliminate the possibility of evil. Humanity has spent learning to live with it. They do not pretend the darkness is not there. They acknowledge it, they face it, and most of the time they overcome it. We have much to learn from them, not despite their unpredictability, but because of it. They can teach us that peace is never guaranteed and must always be renewed. They can teach us that freedom includes the freedom to be better than our worst impulses. They can teach us that hope is not naive but necessary. The vote took 3 days. Factions argued. Proposals were made and rejected. At times it seemed the conquered itself might fracture. In the end, they chose a middle path. Humanity would not be isolated. They would not be controlled, but neither would they be fully integrated without conditions. Instead, the conquered created something new, a joint council that included human representatives, a partnership where humans would help other species understand the burden and the gift of true freedom. Was offered a permanent position on this new council. She accepted. Before she began her new duties, she made one final visit to. He was still in detention, awaiting transfer to a rehabilitation facility. He looked older than when she had first met him, worn down by months of confinement and reflection. I read your testimony to the High Council, he said. They shared it with me, something about understanding my own condition. What did you think? Was quiet for a long moment. You made us sound almost noble, the way you described human freedom, the way you framed our choices. I described what I observed. Maybe, he looked at his hands, but I still did what I did. I still hurt those people for no real reason. Freedom does not make that okay. No, agreed. It does not. But freedom makes redemption possible. A creature with no choice cannot truly be forgiven. A creature with no choice cannot truly change. You have the capacity to become someone different from who you were. Do you really believe that? Considered the question carefully. She thought about everything she had learned, the darkness and the light, the terror and the hope. I believe that you will spend the rest of your life making choices, she said. Some will be good, some may be bad, but they will be yours. That is the human condition. That is what makes you frightening, and that is what makes you beautiful. Smiled just a little. It was a sad smile, but there was something new in it, something that looked almost like hope. Left the detention center and walked to the observation deck. Through the vast windows, she could see ships coming and going. Human ships and alien ships, side by side. A galaxy learning to accommodate beings who could not be predicted or controlled. It would not be easy. There would be more incidents, more violence, more fear. The darkness in human minds would never disappear. It would always be there, whispering, waiting. But so would the light, the capacity for love and sacrifice and unexpected heroism, the ability to look into the abyss and choose to step back, the power to be better than the worst impulses that every human carried. Filed her final report as commander of the Human Psychology Analysis Unit. She gave it a new classification code, one she had created specifically for humanity. Threat level infinite. Potential infinite. Recommendation hope. She submitted the report and closed her terminal. Somewhere out in the galaxy, billions of humans were waking up. They were going to work, raising children, fighting with partners and making up again, creating art and committing small cruelties and performing tiny acts of kindness. Each one of them a universe of possibilities. Each one of them choosing, moment by moment, who they wanted to be. Did not know what the future would bring. For the first time in her long life, she was comfortable with that uncertainty. Because uncertainty, she had learned, was just another word for freedom. And freedom, terrifying as it was also the only soil where hope could grow.